Welcome to another insightful episode of the Thriving Immigrant Podcast. My name is Paul Hadiye. I'm excited to always do this. And before I go into today's conversation, I just want to say a big thank you to you for tuning in, for listening to this podcast, for sharing it with your friends. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. Today's conversation, of course, is an insightful conversation. I am really excited to introduce my guests. My guest moved to the United States over a decade ago, transitioned into the tech space, cybersecurity to be precise, did amazingly well in that space for some years, and decided to transition into entrepreneurship by partnering with some amazing individuals to set up their own organization called XSITE Capital. So, XSITE Capital is an investment company. They've been helping professionals to build wealth and to show them ways how they can invest their money. The beautiful thing about what they are doing is they are not only serving Americans, but they also have opportunities for people across the globe. So regardless of where you are living or where you reside in, you can actually be a part of what Excite Capital are doing. And I'm excited to introduce my guest, Tenny. Tenny Tolofari. Tenny is in cybersecurity space. Currently, is the Chief Growth Officer and co-founder of Excite Capital Investment. That company is doing magic in the US right now as we speak. I saw
Call it
some of
magic.
I saw some of their posts and I was wowed. I was like, wow, this is amazing. So Tenny is our guest for today. There's a lot to learn from Tenny's story. There's a lot of wisdom that Tenny is going to share. And I'm excited to have Tenny as my guest. So Tenny, welcome to the Thriving Immigrant Podcast.
Thank you so much, Paul, for having me. Appreciate it. Looking forward to chatting with your audience, and hopefully, I can add value to your audience here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. All right. So Tenny, even from your accent, it doesn't sound like you're an immigrant. You sound like Black American. But I know that you are not a Black American. I know that
hmm
you were born in Nigeria. So do you want to talk
hmm
a little bit? You want to share with us your immigration journey?
Absolutely, absolutely. Like a lot of immigrants is when you're born and you start growing in the world, you start dreaming. And then oftentimes we dream of a place where we can have a better life. And there's the same story, like a lot of people that have moved from different parts of the world to the United States. Um, I wanted to come here to for greener pasture. I was born raised in Nigeria. I had my undergrad in Nigeria, and I came here for grad school in 2010. Um, yeah, and that's how I came down here. Did my master's degree in Bowie State University, Maryland. Graduated in 2012, and I started working in the corporate world. And yeah, I started working with the likes of Bowen, Deloitte, where I was a global cybersecurity professional with them. I'm an incident commander from a cybersecurity perspective. I used to be an incident commander. Right now, I'm an investor. I no longer, by the grace of God, I'm no longer doing cybersecurity anymore. I'm focused on building XSITE Capital with my partners. So I'm going to be sharing a lot of information about what we're doing here at XSITE Capital. But yeah, came to the United States, worked the 9 to 5 path, and found myself here now, being one of the founders of XSITE Capital, and we're building an amazing company with our community of investors.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
I'm really curious because your 9 to 5, or let me say your professional background, was in a space that is still currently thriving. And I believe that if you had not left 9 to 5 for entrepreneurship, you probably will still be doing amazingly well because
Yes.
cybersecurity, as of today, they're still looking for professionals. So there's a huge gap between people currently practicing cybersecurity and the number of people that they need in that space. So why entrepreneurship and why investment? Why did you choose that path? Was that part of your dreams or part of your plan before moving to the US?
Absolutely not. My plan to move into the United States is to just come and get my master's degree and do the 9 to 5. So when you're growing up, there's a lot of foundationals, or there are a lot of things that you learn that subconsciously you don't know you're actually learning from your environments, from your parents, from your mom, your dad.
Hmm.
And some point in the future, sometime in the future, some of those things that you learn might just kick in, and you'd be like, "Oh, where did this come from?" For me, I wanted to just come to the U.S. and study and get good grades and get a good job. And the way I looked at it is, for some reason, I get to see things a little further than a lot of people. When I came here, uh, I think in IT that time, a lot of folks wanted to focus in being a DBA or being a business analyst or doing something else that's not related to cybersecurity. But for some reason, I had a professor that was like, Tenny, the next 10 years is going to be cybersecurity is going to be the key highlight when it comes to IT. Maybe you should spend some time studying it. So I bought my first cybersecurity book in 2010, the CISSP book. That was a
Hmm.
long time ago. That's 15 years ago. So I bought that book and started studying it, and I focused on cybersecurity from there on. So I'm at a point, and as I continued my journey, there's this philosophy that I learned from Robert Kiyosaki, and he said, in the United States economy or in the world in general, you can fall in one of four. You can participate in one of four categories, and these quadrants or categories are the E quadrants, meaning you're an employee working for somebody and they're getting a paycheck. And then two, you can have the self-employed, which is you move from I don't want to work for somebody else, I want to work for myself. Think about the dentist, the solo entrepreneurs, the
Uh,
lawyers. Those guys, they start working for themselves. Now you're running from not being an employee, you become a boss plus the employee. And if you have a problem or you're unable to work, you don't earn any money, right? So a lot of people move from the E and go straight to the S quadrant. But what Robert Kiyosaki said is, if you want to be wealthy, you have to participate in the B and I quadrant, which is on the right side of the quadrant. So you have the E, the S, the B, and the I. So that's one philosophy that stuck with me,
hmm.
basically. That philosophy is like, the I, you're working for somebody, the B, you're working for yourself. Sorry, the I, you're working for somebody. The E, sorry, you're working for somebody. The S, self-employed, you're working for yourself. The B, you're building a business. And then the I, you're investing. The B and I are in the right side of the quadrant. And that philosophy stuck to me because he said, if you want to be wealthy, you want to be in the B and I quadrant. And on the B quadrant, what are you doing? You have a product or solution that you're solving a problem. You have people that are working for you. You have processes and you have technology, people, technology, and processes. And of course, you have a solution that you're offering to the marketplace. Now, the hardest thing to do is to build a business, because when you're building a business, you have to deal with people. People are the hardest people to deal with. You're one of the hardest things people to like deal with when it comes to anything, because you have to manage people. And of course, you have a solution that you have to create for a problem that's in the marketplace, and then you have to figure out how to make money doing that. So the B is one of the toughest thing anybody can do, and that's why they get rewarded significantly when you're able to build a business. And then finally, the I is you leverage other people resources. For example, people that are real estate investors, people that are producing. For example, you have the all these companies and that are in the stock markets, the S&P
S&P
500.
500, yeah.
You have precious metal. You have oil and gas. You have all of these alternate assets are all in the I quadrant that you can leverage those platforms to build wealth, meaning you just put your money to work, right? Now, in the B quadrant, one thing that's similar between the I and the B quadrant is leverage. In
Hmm.
the B quadrant, you're leveraging people, technology, and processes. In the I quadrant, you're leveraging other people's platform, other people's assets to build wealth. So he said, if you operate in the B and the I quadrant, you'll be wealthy. And that stuck with me. So the question I ask myself is, now I'm in the E quadrant. How do I find myself in the B and I quadrant? And that's what I think will help a lot of people on this podcast today is if you're in the E quadrant, which is you're working for somebody, how do you get yourself in either the S, the B, or the I quadrant? I operated in the E quadrant. I operated in the B quadrant. I'm operating in the I quadrant. I'm operating in the B quadrant, but I no longer operate in the E and the S quadrant. Now I'm in the B and the I quadrant right now. But I can walk you guys through that journey. And again, you can ask me questions about how I did that, and I can share with the team, with you, the audience here.
Fantastic. Quite profound. So I've read a lot of things. I've read that book you're talking about by Robert
Mm-hmm.
Kiyosaki. I and I have a lot of questions from what you've said.
Mm-hmm, please.
My first one would be almost everyone understands that, it's tough to build wealth on the E quadrant. Doesn't mean that people don't build wealth on the E quadrant. It might just take a longer time. And even if you're going to build wealth in the E quadrant, you still have to find your way to that I quadrant. For example, you work 9 to 5,
Mm-hmm.
you make good income.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't save, if you don't invest some of that money, you are just
Yeah.
going to keep working for the rest of your life.
Right.
So you can be in the E quadrant, make good money, manage your lifestyle, and also find yourself on the I quadrant.
That's correct.
However, to grow to the point, because when we talk about investments, you need to survive before you thrive. You need to make good money before you can start investing.
Right.
So it takes a lot of work or a lot of effort to work and get to the point where you can invest a significant amount of money.
Right.
Now, my question would be, how easily can you transition from E to B? I'm omitting S because, and I might be wrong, because I personally feel like the S quadrant is even tougher than the E quadrant.
Yes, it is. It's
So
absolutely tougher.
it's tougher. And if I'm going to recommend that, so if you cannot find yourself on the B quadrant, just stay at the E quadrant and grow fast and grow well.
Actually, everything on the on the right side of the quadrant is tougher than everything on the E quadrant. The B quadrant is really tough,
Okay.
but the cost benefit analysis, when you
Right.
do it, the B is higher than the S quadrant.
That
That
is
means if you do it right and you give it time on the B quadrant, you're able to actually thrive and build something great. But the I, you're not really building anything because it's 100% dependent on you, right? So actually, all the quadrants are hard. None of them is easy. Because if you think about it in the E quadrant, if you go on there, you have to go to school or learn a craft, have a skill set, and then you have to prove to somebody that you're able to provide a skill set that they need in order for their business to thrive. And then they'll be able to say, well, I think you have the skill set. I'm going to hire you. And then they pay you a salary and they give you a bonus. They compensate you for the skill set that you bring to the table. Now, if you do not have a good skill set, or if you're not sellable in the marketplace, nobody's going to pay you a lot of money. So to your question, how does somebody from the E quadrant go to the I quadrant or to the B quadrant or to the S quadrant if they want? Is one, you have to have a skill that somebody is willing to pay for. And if your skill is not, I always tell people that if you're choosing anything in life, the vehicle you choose is the most important thing that will set you up for the future. For example, if you want to build wealth, E quadrant is one of the most important quadrants in anything to build wealth. A lot of people disregard the E quadrant, but without the E quadrant, I wouldn't be here today.
Profound.
So the E quadrant is actually an asset. It actually help you build that seed capital for you to be able to do anything in the S, the B, or the I quadrant. So if I'm going to advise anybody today, is please, if you have if you're an employee of somebody, you want to leverage the income, you want to leverage the platform, you want to leverage the experience that you have from there to figure out how you can now go into the B, the S, or the I quadrant. If you do that very well, you easily succeed in the B, the I, and the S quadrant. If you want to move in any of those directions. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And you made a very valid point. I think there was a time I posted something on, was it LinkedIn or X, talking about how important the e-quadrant can be for people who want to even build businesses.
Yep.
Because, like you mentioned, it's a it's a very good platform for you to learn some skills, for you to make some money, for you to even build your confidence, and for you to also build relationships, because when you become a business owner, you are going to be dealing with a lot of people, and people
Yeah.
skills are also very important. And
Right.
you probably don't know maybe the connection, the relationship that you've built over the years, how they're going to help you as a new business owner or a self-employed person. And
That's
most
correct.
times, people that build businesses, most times, apart from very few people, they usually build business from their past experiences. So with
That's correct.
someone that worked in maybe the retail industry, you find them building a business in that same industry because that's where they are comfortable. That's what they've learned over the years. If
That's correct.
someone has worked in maybe the tech industry, you will likely find them building something in that space as well. Meaning
That's
that
correct.
all the skills, all the experiences they've gathered, they are now leveraging them to do something big for themselves. So thank you, Tenny, for mentioning that.
Absolutely. We created this platform called the Beyond 9 to 5. The Beyond 9 to 5 Club is basically a platform for folks that are looking to leverage their 9 to 5 to do something great for themselves and their family. Like I said, without the E quadrant, there's no XSITE Capital, there's no me, there's no Dr. Oni. Without the 9 to 5, there's nothing like that because all the investments we have to make in ourselves, in our business, in hiring people, all of them stem from the E quadrant. And
Hmm.
all we needed to do was to make as much money from the E quadrant as much as possible so that we can invest in the B quadrant.
Yeah.
Because at some point, you have to pay staffs, even when you're not making money. You have to create a solution, even when you're not making money. And how are you going to do all of that? You have to invest in the I quadrant as well. How are you going to afford all of that? You have to leverage your E quadrant, your job to be able to get that done. So
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Tenny. You've made very valid points, and I'm loving this conversation. I want to talk.
thank you.
I wanted to talk a little bit about your experience in entrepreneurship. And the question I would like to ask you is: you've talked about your partners, maybe unconsciously. You've mentioned your partners. You also mentioned Dr. Julius Oni, and I'm going to ask you: do you see power in collaboration, or do you think you could achieve the same level of success in your business if you had no partner at all?
Absolutely not. Without Dr. Oni and Leslie Awasam, there's no XSITE Capital, there's no me. Now, of course, I'll be here, but there won't be any XSITE Capital. And all the things you're hearing about XSITE Capital right now will not be in existence. Um, One of the beautiful things that happened to my life is finding Dr. Oni and Leslie to be partners. Because one of the things that you find that's really hard when you go in this entrepreneurial journey is actually finding partners that can actually see you all can create a vision and you all align with that vision and work on it for a long period of time. It's usually hard to find people that have complementary strengths. What I'm about to say right now is super important. Complementary strengths, not the same strength.
Hmm.
For example, Dr. Oni, he's the leader of the company. He's the CEO of XI Capital. He puts our name out there. He represents our brand. He's XI Capital, right? He embodies the principles of XI Capital. Um, Me, I'm the guy that go in and knock the doors and find the deals and bring it to the organization and we take it down. And then Leslie's like our operation genius. He's the one that puts everything together. So while Dr. Oni is the CEO, I'm the chief growth officer and head of acquisition. Leslie is the chief operational officer. So all three of us have different complementary strengths, and we exactly know what our roles are within the company. So there's no conflict. And what we did when we started the company, we agreed that everybody needs to stay in their lane. Meaning, in acquisition, I don't want Leslie or Dr. Oni telling me what to do in acquisition. It's my department. Now, of course, I'm going to get feedback from you, you positive and negative feedback. I want that. But the ultimate decision when it comes to, how to find the deal, how to build a relationship, how to bring those deals to the organization, that ultimately falls in my sphere. When it comes to the vision, when it comes to where we want to go, when it comes to building relationships that will take us to the next level, Dr. Oni is the person, right? And then Leslie, I'll have some. He's the guy that integrates everything. Basically, he's the one that makes sure all our employees are doing what they're supposed to be doing. He's making sure all our operations are good, all our assets are being managed the way it should, all our accounting are good. He's basically the engine running everything in the back end, right? So that three duo came together, and that's what has made XSITE Capital what it is today. So again, to answer your question, without these two guys, there won't be any XSITE Capital.
Beautiful. Yeah, so I really love what you meant. I really love what you talked about. And I admire how you guys have been able to work together. So
thank you.
Apart from, and you made a very valid point. At that point, it's very powerful, talking about complementary strength, giving deep meaning to that complementary strength, because sometimes it's difficult to find or to even identify people that have strength that have complementary strength that you guys can work together with. And the reason why I'm saying this is naturally you would meet people that look like you, people that you share the same strength, but it doesn't mean that you guys can work together. So right. Because as you have different strengths, you also have different weaknesses.
Right.
So apart from complementary strength, what else should we look out for? Let's say now Paul is trying to build a business and he wants to work with different partners. So apart from complementary strength, are there any other thing?
Oh yeah, I have a whole lot. So the number one is ego. There's this book called The Ego is the Enemy. I think it's Ryan Holiday. Is it Ryan Holiday that wrote that book? Ego is the Enemy. You guys research it. It's a good book. Dr. Oni, he's a renowned orthopedic surgeon, leader, great guy to call a brother and a friend and a business partner. Same thing with Leslie. Guess what we all do? We all put our egos, when we start talking about XSITE Capital, we keep our egos right there at the door. And then we come into XSITE Capital and then we start having conversation. So we call each other out on when we're doing something wrong, when we're doing something right, we call each other out. And you have to be humble enough to know what you don't know and let somebody that knows it take care of it, right? You have to be humble enough to understand that this is your weakness and this is your strength. And you want to outsource your weakness as much as possible. So what me, Leslie, and Julius have been able to find and agree upon as one of our core values at XSITE Capital is humility. Meaning we check our ego at every point in time because it's in the best interest of three of us and, of course, the organization that we're trying to build as well. So Ego is the Enemy is a book that everybody should read if you're looking to build a business. And that is one of the principles that have actually helped guide us at XSITE Capital to what we have today.
Awesome. I'm loving this conversation. Thank you for mentioning that. So humility, ego is the enemy. So everybody drops their ego at the door. Makes sense.
Yep.
Now, do you want to talk to us a little bit about XSITE Capitals? What do you guys really offer? What are you guys into?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's pretty simple, man. I try to, whenever I have a conversation with somebody, I like to let them understand XSITE Capital is just a platform for busy professionals, folks that are looking to build wealth, but they don't have the time to do it. Just like we talked about earlier, you can leverage your E to be in the I quadrants. XSITE Capital, what we observed is the way a lot of people build wealth is through real estate. Not just single family homes, not just duplexes, but large real estate. And what we see when we did our survey around us, when we looked at our communities, when I say community, I'm talking about our Nigerian community, our African communities. We're talking about healthcare professionals, IT professionals, our professional community in general. that we interface with, we observe that a lot of them are not privy to investing in these institutional grade assets or these large apartment buildings or commercial real estate in general. So the question we ask ourselves is there a way we can create a solution where people in the E quadrant that wants to invest in the I quadrant can actually get access to institutional grade assets to build wealth? Not just to build wealth, also to reduce their tax burden. And in the last 6 years, that's what we've done at XSITE Capital. We created XSITE Capital for busy professionals to help them build wealth using real estate. We created XSITE Capital for them to have access to an asset class that was only available to the wealthy, meaning you only have to meet a certain income requirement, and you need to have access to a certain amount of community in order for you to be able to get access to these deals. Now we're bringing that to our communities, and we're super, super excited of what we've done. So far, we just closed a $49.1 million transaction a couple of days ago, which brings our portfolio to $217 million of assets under management. And there's no way we would have done this without a community. You asked the question about partnership. When you think about numbers, there's strength in numbers. There's no one person that have done anything great. There's no one person that have bought large assets across this country that have done it by themselves. So what we're looking to do now, and one of the things we identify is Nigerian immigrants, African immigrants. A lot of us are hard workers. A lot of us are high earning individuals. But guess what happens? We earn all this money and we give away 40, 50% to taxes, right? The most important thing when it comes to earning money is not just about making money, but it's about keeping it. And XSITE Capital figure out a way to be able to help busy professionals like us get access to these deals, because there's no reason why we work, earn all this money, and we cannot keep it. If everybody is doing it and there's a tax code out there that enables you to keep it, why can't we do that? So what we're doing is helping folks grow wealth and reduce their tax burden using commercial real estate. And when I say commercial real estate, I'm talking about 100 plus unit apartment buildings across the country.
Impressive. So I really love what you just said. And
thank you.
To me, it's like a SWOT approach. So while you're trying to help people build wealth, you're also trying to help them reduce their taxes, because in North America, taxes is like the biggest burden.
Absolutely.
So the average immigrant doesn't even mind, just reduce my taxes, because we are hard workers, just like you said.
Absolutely. And we make a lot of money.
We make a lot of money, and it's a tax progressive system. So the more you make, the more you are likely to pay back in taxes.
Exactly.
And sometimes that prevents people from having enough disposable income to even attempt investing. So you helping them to build wealth, to take care of their future, at the same time reducing their taxes, I think that's a fantastic model. And
it's the holy grail. It's the holy grail.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer. So congratulations to you, Dr. Julius and Leslie, for taking the courage to build something like this, empowering the Black community and giving hope to the upcoming generation. Because
absolutely. The thing is not when you think about it and you survey it, a lot of people, there's so many apartment buildings in this country or in the world. And when you walk around it and you ask yourself, actually, somebody owns that, right?
Somebody who owns this.
So the question you ask yourself is, why can't we own it? Or why can't I own it? And when you now dig a little deeper, you will not realize that the person that owns it is not one person. There's some people came together, they raised capital. So let me just blow your mind a little bit.
Okay.
So when we get a job, we get hired. We get hired, they say put some money away in your 401k. In your 401k, they do what's called asset allocation. They put some of the money in index funds and mutual funds. They put some of them in REITs, which is real estate investment trust.
Right.
And guess what those REITs do? They find people like us and say, hey guys, the deal that we just closed, we actually bought it from a REIT.
Mm.
right? They look for people like us and say, hey guys, did you guys find a deal? We say, yes, we found a deal. They say, well, I'm going to give you $5, $10 million. I need 15% return on my money.
Mm.
But guess what happens when you work for somebody and you're invested in REITs? They promise you maybe 10%.
Mm.
So they come to us, they make 15 and they give you 10. They make 5% spread. And now because you trust the system, you don't question where they're investing your money in. You're just like, yeah, here's my money. You guys just do whatever you want to do with it. So what we're doing at XSITE Capital, we're sticking away the middleman. So you now, Paul, you don't need to go and go put your money somewhere else that goes across different platforms. No, 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 no. You know exactly the asset you're investing in.
Wow.
That's the access that we're giving. Like this $49.1 million deal, we have a lot of investors that are in the deal. Again, there will not be any XSITE Capital without our community of investors
Of course.
that trust us, that believed in us, that said, you know what, we can come together and make this happen. So there won't be any XSITE Capital without these investors, right? So we are giving them direct access to institutional grade assets without the middleman. So they get, instead of getting the 10%, they are getting exactly between 15. We've delivered 29.97% average annual return to investors in the past. So they get direct access to this kind of return. If the property do well, they do well. So that's just basically the value that we're creating for our community.
Fantastic. If you are listening to me right now for the first time, I would say I'm sure you are loving this conversation. Welcome to the Thriving Immigrant Podcast. Please hit the subscribe button. This is a this is a much needed conversation that we need to have in our community because I love the fact that Tenny, you're talking about real estate. There was a time I saw this movie, the Founder movie. I'm sure you must have seen that movie, talking about McDonald, history of
Oh yeah,
McDonald.
yeah, yeah. I found it. Yeah, I've watched that one.
Yeah, so it changed my perspective about real estate. It made me realize that everything, everything in the world, even these businesses, the foundation is real estate.
Absolutely.
The foundation is real estate. So as you leave your home to go and work with your employer is existing because they've invested in real estate. At the very least, they have a building, and that building is sitting on the real estate, which is also an investment.
Exactly.
You come back home, or on your way, you go to McDonald's to buy lunch. That's a business existing because of real estate. You
Right.
come back home to sleep. That's a real estate. So everything is the base of every investment in life is probably real estate. And if I'm wrong, you guys can correct me.
So when you think about real estate, it's basically solving some core human needs, right? For example, what we buy apartment buildings, we're solving the need of housing. In the
Right.
United States right now, there's a shortage of housing right now,
Hmm.
right? So if you're able to provide accommodation for people to have a place to stay, you're solving a problem, a huge problem. And guess what? Well, one third or two third of your income in America goes actually one third goes towards paying your rent.
It's higher than that in Canada.
It's what I'm saying. So what does that mean? It means that a higher portion of your income goes towards housing. So
Right.
if somebody is able to solve that problem, remember the B quadrant is building businesses where you solve problems. That's what XSITE Capital is doing. Is we're creating a business right here
Hmm.
where we're solving problems, right? And then when we bring our investors, we find an assets here that in the I quadrant that they can use to build wealth. So we're solving problems. We're coming up with the process, the technology, the people that will actually create that solution, finding the asset, putting it under the contract, do the due diligence on it, running it, making sure it's producing revenue. And then a lot of investors from the E can straight directly invest in the I quadrant for them to build it. Now a lot of folks have reached out to us and say, hey, listen, can I invest directly in XSITE Capital?
Yeah.
We've not gone public yet.
Okay.
So
That
you
was gonna
cannot
be
invest in XSITE. You cannot invest in XSITE Capital.
that was gonna be my next question. So I was gonna ask you that, but now that you've answered that, let's talk about the minimum requirement to even partner with you guys. Like, do you accept clients beyond the US, Can someone from Canada, Nigeria, can they invest?
Absolutely, absolutely. We have people in Nigeria, in the UK, Ireland, Canada that have invested in this deal right now. So one of the bottlenecks we faced when we started was we had a lot of people that had interest in investing in the US market because we all know that the US market is one of the strongest, is actually the strongest in the world. So a
Right.
lot of people want to put their money in hard assets here in the US. And since we have access to these assets, people want to invest. So we're like, okay, how do we, take their money on what is the tax implication? So on this deal, we're able to actually talk to our council here to come up with a structure where people internationally can actually invest. And the minimum investment is $50,000 in a lot of our deals. And then if you're based here in the US, you have to be an accredited investor for you to be able to invest. For those that are outside of the US, some of these laws you might have to check with your attorney or your CPA that some of these laws doesn't apply. But if you're here in the US, you have to be an accredited investor to invest in some of our offerings. There are some offerings that we put out, like the deal when we launched it, we took sophisticated investors that are not accredited. They were able to come on a deal, but later on we moved it to accredited investors only investment. And these are some of the rules that the SEC here provide for us to be able to make sure we're operating the business in a good fashion.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I have a follow-up question. So I
Please go ahead.
let's say Paul lives in the US now. Now
Mm-hmm.
Paul wants to start investing, but he's not yet accredited. Do you know what it takes to be an accredited investor?
Absolutely. It's simple. There's an income requirement and there's a net worth requirement. Income, you need to be making $200,000 or more as an individual, and you would have made that money for the last 2 years with an expectation to continue making that going forward. Or if you're married, you have to be making you and your spouse need to be making $300,000 or more. The same thing 2 years prior to the investment, and with an expectation to continue to make it forward. Or you have a net worth of $1 million, excluding your primary residence. If you meet those requirements, you are qualified as an accredited investor.
Beautiful. Okay. So thank you, Tenny. This has been a very insightful conversation. I've learned a lot from everything you've said. I
Absolutely.
was I wanted to ask you now. I'm not yet accredited. I
Mm-hmm.
don't make 200K.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that we make 200K in the future.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm not married.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want to do something with you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything for such people at the
So
moment?
when it comes, absolutely, when it comes to investing, right, there are two things you can do. You can either invest in an asset or you can invest in yourself, right? We have a bunch of materials that we put out there for people to educate themselves. For example, you don't have to be an accredited investor to learn how to invest in real estate. You can learn how to do real estate. We have a course that we've created just to educate our community. We have a very restricted one-on-one program where we hold people's hands to actually do this. In the United States and across the world, people that are looking to invest in the US market and using the same strategy that we have. We have a one-on-one mentorship program that we have. We have a course. And we're looking to continue to provide a lot of educational materials for people that are looking to go do this themselves. And again, all you just have to just reach out to us at XSITEcapital.com, and one of our team members will reach out to you and try to understand exactly what your goals are. Because what we do is we identify what you're looking to do and we see if we're a good fit. If we're not a good fit, we can point you in the right direction to show you what you can go get or use to get to where you want to get. We don't know it all and we don't claim that we do. But whatever we can help in our platform, we're able to help out with investing and with education as well.
Wow. Wow. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you, Tenny, for coming to the Thriving Immigrant Podcast. Honestly, I could go another 1, 2 hours, but not to bore my listener, I would like to call it a day at this point. But before then, there's a question I usually love to ask my guests is what is the most powerful piece of advice that you've ever received? And it doesn't have to be business related. It can just be anything.
I think the advice that I would give that always, my mom actually gave me the advice is um, if you want something, you really want something, you have to be persistent.
Hmm.
You don't just, face one challenge and you quit, right? If you really want something, go for it. You're going to face a lot of obstacles, especially if the thing is big. You're going to face a lot of obstacles from your family, your friends, brothers, uncles, friends, everything. As long as you have it in your mind, it comes in your mind, you can achieve it. If you can conceive it, you can achieve it. And there's a reason why you have it in your mind. And if that's clear enough in your mind, you can achieve it. So tenacity is one of the attributes that keeps me going, where whatever, regardless of what I face, I keep going and I don't quit if I really want that thing. So stay persistent, tenacious, and have a beautiful day.
Profound. Thank you so much, Tenny. We've had a wonderful time with Tenny Tolofari of XSITE Capital. We are excited, and I'm really excited about what you guys are building. Shout out to your
Thank you so
partners.
much.
Shout out to Dr. Julius Oni and Leslie. And I look forward to hosting you, maybe with your other partners another time.
Absolutely. We look forward to it. Thank you for having me, Paul.
All right. So thank you everyone for tuning in. On this note, I wish you a nice day. If you are listening for the first time, please subscribe. If you know anyone that you think would benefit from this wonderful conversation, please go ahead and share this podcast with them. Let's build a thriving community one day at a time. Thank you and have a wonderful one.